PayPal is cashing in on your data. Rivo OTP has begun the identification process, the largest botnet ever dismantled, and how to tell if you are actually, and maybe still are, a part of it, and more. Welcome to Surveillance Report 180, where we're dedicated to keeping you private and secure with the latest news in the past week. Before we cover the PayPal story, I just want to introduce myself as Henry from Techlore.
And I am Nathan from The New Oil.
Quick promo segment. This podcast is brought to you for free every week. The reason we're able to do that is because of our wonderful supporters on Patreon, LibrePay, and also Monero. So Patreon is where you can contribute to the podcast and get perks in exchange. Like, we publish a whole version of this podcast without these promo segments if you skip over these or anything like that. And we also do a weekly Q&A. LibrePay is also an option, and then Monero is probably the most private way to support what we're doing back here. And without further ado, the highlight story is PayPal is planning an ad business using data on its millions of shoppers. This is built around the reams of data it generates from tracking the purchases as well as the broader spending behaviors of millions of consumers who use its services, which is not just tied to PayPal, but actually Venmo as well, which for people who don't know, they're the same company. I know not everyone knows that, but they are the same company and they're actually sharing data between the two of them. PayPal in January introduced Advanced Offers, which is its first ad product which uses AI and the company's data to help merchants target PayPal users with discounts and other personalized promotions. Advanced Offers only charges advertisers when consumers make a purchase, and online marketplaces, eBay and Zazzle have begun testing it, according to PayPal. But PayPal now aims to sell ads not only to its own customers, but so-called non-endemic advertisers, or those that don't sell products or services through PayPal. Those companies might use PayPal data to target consumers with ads that could be displayed elsewhere, like websites or connected TV sets. A couple things: if you've been using PayPal and you still use PayPal, you should know that your data is being utilized to now target possibly you and other people, and is used to train data sets, and is used in this elaborate ability to help track and personalize ads towards specific users. But you should also know that you might also start now seeing ads. If you're somebody who uses PayPal, you're going to start seeing ads most likely. And so we're obviously going to be more concerned about the privacy implications of that and how they're doing this and how your data is scraped up as a part of that. So definitely try to avoid PayPal as much as you can if you really value this kind of stuff.
I don't really have much to add to this other than, I guess PayPal's not really super common anymore. I feel like in consumer to consumer stuff, it's mostly a business thing. If you can replace it with someone like Stripe, I know Stripe's still not, and this is the thing, is like Stripe can end up doing this someday too, because right now they are a little bit better in the privacy department from what I hear, but who knows what the future holds. I think it's just best to try and avoid these services in general when possible, although of course, not always possible. With that, we'll move into our data breach section. We'll start with SaveRx discloses a data breach impacting 2.8 million Americans. So SaveRx is a pharmacy benefit management company that provides prescription drug management services to employers, unions, and other organizations across the US. We found out about this because of a notification to the Maine Attorney General's office. And the types of data exposed included full name, date of birth, social security number, email address, physical address, phone number, eligibility data, and insurance identification number.
First American December data breach impacts 44,000 people. And for those who don't know, this was a company founded in 1889, which provides financial and settlement services to real estate professionals, home buyers, and sellers involved in residential and commercial property transactions. It's not clear exactly what data and information was revealed in the filing with the SEC, but we know it impacts 44,000 people.
Cooler Master was hit by a data breach exposing customer information. Cooler Master is a hardware manufacturer based in Taiwan that is known for its computer cases, cooling devices, gaming chairs, and other computer peripherals. A threat actor by the alias Ghoster contacted Bleeping Computer and claimed to have stolen 103 gigabytes of data. This included Cooler Master corporate, vendor, sales, warranty, inventory, and HR data, as well as over 500,000 of their fan zone members' personal information, including name, address, date of birth, phone, email, and plain unencrypted credit card information containing name, credit card number, expiry, and 3-digit CC code.
Data breach exposes details of 25,000 current and former BBC employees, And this is from an email to those who were affected. And the pension scheme did not explain how the breach happened beyond saying that private records had been copied from an online data storage service. It includes the name, date of birth, and sex of members, their home addresses, national insurance numbers, and an indication that they were a member of the BBC pension scheme. They said the breach did not include any bank details, finance information, telephone numbers, email addresses, username or passwords, or any sensitive health info.
Cybercriminals claim Ticketmaster breach 560 million users' info for sale at about $500,000. So this is a threat actor group called Shiny Hunters, who's actually been around for quite a while, and the data includes full names, addresses, email addresses, phone numbers, ticket sales and event details, order information, and partial payment card data. Specifically, the compromised payment data included customer names, last four of the card number, expiration dates, and even customer fraud details.
Everbridge warns of corporate systems breach, exposing business data. The company provides public warning, crisis management, and risk intelligence services to over 6,500 customers worldwide, which include the U.S. Army, the Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, and the countries of Norway and Australia. A source close to the investigation told Bleeping Computer that customer info was exposed in the corporate data accessed by the threat actors, and those impacted are being notified.
Shiny Hunters is on a roll. We're actually going to talk about them at the end, too. And they are claiming the Santander breach that we mentioned in episode 178. So before we mention it, but we really didn't have any details, we now know that they are selling the data of 30 million customers and employees, actually. It included 28 million credit card numbers and 6 million account numbers and balances.
This next story is companies, and it's from Apple. Apple's integrating content blocking feature into Safari, and here's what we know so far. And I want to mention there's a huge conflict of interest because the person writing this is actually AdGuard, which is probably the top recommendation for ad blockers within Safari. Apple is purportedly planning to integrate ad blocking directly into its Safari browser. The feature will be dubbed Web Eraser and will be accessible through the updated page control menu set to debut with the forthcoming iOS 18. Quote, true to its name, the feature is said to enable users to erase unwanted content from any page of their choosing. This will encompass nuances like banner ads, images, text, and if desired, can extend to entire page sections. The report indicates that the process of purging distractions or other undesired elements from web pages should be effortless and can be accomplished with relative ease. Once you've gotten rid of all the distractions, they're gone for good and won't scurry back to the page when you close it. There have been several, though unconfirmed, reports that the Web Eraser feature might be AI-powered, while there's no indication that it indeed will be AI-driven in this initial report. So it's all just speculation. And if it is, I guess, AI-powered, it is worth mentioning that about a year ago, there was an AI-powered ad blocker called GPT Ad Blocker, and AdGuard, who again wrote this article, tested it and said the results were quite a mixed bag. So that was kind of the input they had there. Yeah, I guess the more not positive side of this, probably for most people, Apple and OpenAI have signed a deal to partner on AI. There's no other info, actually.
Our next story is probably not surprising, but it's still news, so we're going to share it anyways. Google is accused of secretly tracking drivers with disabilities. So this comes from a class action lawsuit that was filed in California by Catherine Wilson, who has accused Google of using Google Analytics and double-click trackers on the California Department of Motor Vehicles website to unlawfully obtain information about her personal disability without her consent. She argues that this violated the Driver Privacy Protection Act as well as the California Invasion of Privacy Act and impacted perhaps millions of drivers who had no way of knowing that Google was collecting sensitive information shared only for DMV purposes. Quoting her, she says, Google uses the personal information it obtains from motor vehicle records to create profiles, categorize individuals, and derive information about them to sell its customers the ability to create targeted marketing and advertising. According to Wilson, California's DMV encourages drivers to use its website rather than visiting one of the DMV's physical locations without telling drivers that Google has trackers all over its site.
This is more of a speculative story from the Census Bureau that's considering cellular tracking. This comes from Michael Basil, who did a blog post on this. Essentially, one of the members, again, it's kind of like someone relaying what someone else said, who authorized to share it there, and the person participates in surveys offered by the U.S. Census. And they ask questions like, to what extent are you against the Census Bureau getting your information from the IRS? from the Social Security Administration, from credit reporting companies like Experian and Equifax. And then it also talks about how they might plan to use information from private companies for census fulfillment, and they don't know which companies are being considered. And it also means that they might be considering tracking cell telephone location history. It's more something just to keep on your radar. It doesn't seem like anything here is really confirmed. We don't really know what's going on.
Our next political story will come from Ottawa, where they want to create a secret backdoor in networks to allow for surveillance. So this is an opinion piece, but it seems very well researched, and I'm going to quote a couple of relevant articles here. A federal cybersecurity bill slated to advance through Parliament soon contains secretive encryption-breaking powers that the government has been loath to talk about, and they threaten the online security of everyone in Canada. Bill C-26 empowers government officials to secretly order telecommunications companies to install backdoors inside encrypted elements in Canada's network. This could include requiring telcos to alter the 5G encryption standards that protect mobile communications to facilitate government surveillance. The bill's new spy powers also reveal incoherence in the government's cybersecurity strategy. In 2022, Canada announced it would be blocking telecom equipment from Huawei and ZTE, citing the, quote, cascading economic and security impacts, unquote, that a supply chain breach would engender. The government cited concerns that Chinese firms might be compelled to comply with extrajudicial directions from foreign governments, and yet Bill C-26 would quietly provide Canada with the same authority that it publicly condemned. If the bill passes as is, all telecom providers in Canada would be compellable through secret orders to weaken encryption or network equipment. It doesn't just contradict Canada's own pro-encryption policy and expert guidance, authoritarian governments abroad would also be able to point to Canada's law to justify their own repressive security legislation. Unquote. There's also a whole section in there where they talked about existing vulnerabilities in cell networks, some of which I think we've discussed on the show.
Spain bans Meta from launching election features on Facebook and Instagram over privacy fears. So this is ahead of next month's European elections, and the Local Data Protection Authority, the AEPD, has used emergency powers to protect local users' privacy. Meta confirmed to TechCrunch it has complied, which can last for up to 3 months. So they're concerned that Meta's planned election-related features would violate the GDPR, including in relation to the lawfulness of processing and data minimization requirements. Political views are classed as special category data under the pan-EU regulation, which requires a higher bar of obtaining explicit consent from the user for processing. No specifics were given on exactly what these features were or how they would have collected user data.
That'll take us into our free and open source news. So this is actually coming from the Privacy Guides forum from a user named Super Earth. The headline says, PSA, export your keys before updating Rivo OTP to the latest 1.6 version. I'll read the post real quick. Be careful, as you might lose all your keys if you update Rivo to the latest 1.6 version without backing up your keys when not using an online sync. The latest version shadow dropped a subscription model that requires the user to set up the entire account again, and the restore functionality seems to be exclusive to subscribers only.
And now we're going to go into the Misfits, and the first one is your computer part of the largest botnet ever? So the U.S. Department of Justice today said they arrested the operator of 911S5, a 10-year-old online anonymity service that was powered by what the director called likely the world's largest botnet ever. The arrest coincided with the seizure of the 911S5 website and supporting infrastructure, which the government says turned computers running various, quote, free VPN products into internet traffic relays that facilitated billions of dollars in online fraud and cybercrime. The FBI encouraged internet users to visit a new FBI webpage that can help people determine whether their computers may be part of the botnet, which the government says span more than 19 million individual computers in at least 190 countries. They said that 911S5 and Cloud Router used several free VPN brands to lure consumers into installing the proxy service. And some of those services, so keep your ears up, it includes Mask VPN, Dew VPN, DEW, Paladin VPN, Proxygate, Shield VPN, and naturally, Shine VPN.
This next story comes from the BBC. The headline says, I was misidentified as a shoplifter by facial recognition tech. I'm going to go ahead and quote part of it because this is actually a pretty good article. Sarah needed some chocolate. She had one of those days, so she wandered into a home bargain store. This is quoting her, within less than a minute, I'm approached by a store worker who comes up to me and says, you're a thief, you need to leave the store. Sarah, who wants to remain anonymous, was wrongly accused after being flagged by a facial recognition system called FaceWatch, who I feel like we may have discussed, but I could be remembering wrong. She says after her bag was searched and she was led out of the shop and told she was banned from all stores using the technology. Quote, I was just crying and crying the entire journey home. I thought, oh, will my life be the same? I'm going to be looked at as a shoplifter when I've never stolen. FaceWatch later wrote to Sarah and acknowledged it had made an error. FaceWatch is used in numerous stores in the UK, including Budgeon's, Sport Direct, and Cost Cutter, to identify shoplifters. And it's not just retailers who are turning to the technology. They didn't explicitly say it, but they're talking about the police now. That's the other people who are not just retailers. So another story, Mr. Thompson, who works for youth advocacy group Street Fathers, didn't think much of it when he walked past a white man near London Bridge in February. Within a few seconds, though, he was approached by police and told he was a wanted man. Quote, that's when I got a nudge on the shoulder saying at that time I'm wanted. He was asked to give fingerprints and held for 20 minutes. He says he was only let go after handing over a copy of his passport, but it was a case of mistaken identity. And then I think they had another story in there actually that I'm skipping. But the use of facial recognition by police is ramping up. Between 2020 and 2022, the Met Police used live facial recognition 9 times. The following year, in 2023, the figure went up to 23. Already in 2024, it has been used 67 times. So the direction of travel is clear. The Met Police say that around 1 in every 33,000 people who walk by its cameras is misidentified, but the error count is much higher once someone is actually flagged. 1 in 40 alerts so far this year has been a false positive.
All right, and the last story for the week. This is pretty breaking, so we don't have too much to say here, but Snowflake account hacks linked to Santander and Ticketmaster breaches. So this is going to go back a little bit to some earlier stuff we talked about, but it seems a company called Snowflake has been victim of some sort of mass scraping or API abuse type hack. And this cloud data platform is used by 94 plus 100 customers, including some of the largest companies like Adobe, AT&T, Capital One, DoorDash, HP, Instacart, JetBlue, Kraft, Heinz, MasterCard, Micron, NBC Universal, a few others. They are hearing rumors this is going to be a big one, so we'll try to give a more full update next week. And remember that we record on Fridays, so if you're listening on Sunday and you're like, hey, what the hell? There are so many updates from yesterday on Saturday. We recorded Friday. That's why. So you'll hear about it next week.
This is literally, I have not seen any full articles about this in my newsfeed, and I've only seen like a couple posts on Mastodon from reputable people I trust. That's why we're throwing this in there. It's like, I feel like by the time this publishes, this is going to be a big story. If it is, we will definitely address it next week. But right now, there's literally nothing.
And that's it for the week. So again, Rivo OTP definitely has made some kind of nasty changes. Hopefully all of you got to dodge that. There's the upcoming Snowflake scrape and a lot more that we talked about, like PayPal cashing in on user data, largest botnet ever dismantled, and lots of other good stuff. If you like this podcast, again, the #1 way to support us is through Patreon. Really appreciate the support. And that's at patreon.com/surveillancepod. You get to join many other patrons who love what we do, and they get some nice perks. Like they get the ability to join our Q&As. They also get exclusive episodes that don't have these promo segments, and they actually have a lot more analysis, and they're typically quite a bit longer if you want to hear some more of what we have to say about these stories. If you don't want the perks, but you still want to support us in a more privacy-respecting platform, we also support LibrePay. And if you just want to tip us, we do see all your tips through Monero. It's always fun to check the Monero wallet and force a rescan and then see what everyone's doing there. And if you don't want to do any of those, we still always appreciate ratings, likes, and anything else you can do to support us. You can send us news at news@surveillancesupport.tech and share our podcast around if any stories resonated with people. We'll be sharing some of these on our Clips channel as well, Surveillance Clips. That's an easier way to share like a 3-4 minute video with someone you know for just one specific story. So that's all I got. I hope you all enjoyed the episode, and we'll see you next week.